Welcome to Business Minds, a program that connects you with other business owners, with aspiring entrepreneurs, and forward thinkers. This is a place to connect with those individuals, but also to collaborate with those individuals, to share resources, to share insights, and maybe along the way discover some fresh perspectives or different ways of looking at things than perhaps you had in the past. I'm Cindy Bird. I'm your host. I'm a business owner myself. I'm an educator and a thinking partner too. I have a passion for helping individuals and businesses thrive. Thanks so much for choosing to join today's program, where we're going to explore the topic, how to set your entrepreneurial spirit free by being an entrepreneur. Maybe you've heard that term before, maybe not, but you're going to find out a lot more about it on today's program. You know, as we look forward to once again celebrating July 4th, Independence Day, celebrating all of the wonderful freedoms that we enjoy in this great nation, it's a wonderful reminder of how much freedom and autonomy matter to us. I mean, it's one of the top reasons why a lot of people start their businesses. And those freedoms we enjoy in this nation, of course, include the freedom to start your own business. It was actually 16 years ago this month, hard to believe, that I started my business, Image Potential Training and Consulting, as a side hustle, actually, while I continued to work full-time. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I started my business because I wanted that freedom and autonomy, even if it was only on a part-time basis, but I wanted to make a bigger impact, have a more meaningful impact in the world. I had a long-held dream to have my own business, so I wanted to fulfill that dream. I also wanted to have that freedom that comes from being a business owner to create and direct my own career and my work experience. Maybe you've recently started a business, or you're thinking about starting a business for a variety of other reasons that maybe have a little bit of a negative undertone to them. Maybe you're unhappy with the job you currently have. Maybe you aren't feeling fulfilled by the work that you're doing any longer. Perhaps you're not feeling valued or appreciated. Perhaps it's that you don't get along or have toxic coworkers or a boss that's perhaps challenging to work with. Whatever the reason, today's program will help you explore what some of your options might be to help you work through those issues by being that entrepreneur. Set your entrepreneurial spirit free instead. Douglas Brown of Post University points out, however, that oftentimes employees are too quick to see entrepreneurship, going out and starting your own business, as a fix-all solution when you're dealing with some of those issues or you have some of those reasons that I pointed out earlier. And he says you might actually be better suited for something else the business world needs just as much. And while you might desire the freedom and autonomy that comes with being an entrepreneur and having your own business, maybe you're just not ready yet or willing to take that leap and to take on the risks that are associated with having your own business. I know that was somewhat my situation. I wanted to explore what it was like to be an entrepreneur, which is why I started my business on a part-time basis first. But I'm going to share some background with you today about how there were a lot of things I did as an entrepreneur in previous jobs that really, little did I know, were preparing me to be an entrepreneur. So how can you still set your entrepreneurial spirit free and keep your day job, as they say? And in my belief, the answer is by being an entrepreneur. So I've got three things I want to share with you today. First of all, I want to define the term entrepreneur and compare it to the term entrepreneur. Next, I want to discuss how you can become an entrepreneur while still being an employee. And lastly, I want to close out with a very practical explanation of a little bit of the brain science behind why people enjoy freedom and autonomy, why we actually crave it to an extent, and how, if you're a business owner or a manager watching today, how you can set up an environment that encourages entrepreneurship, and that will help you to engage your employees more, spark innovation, and even help you gain a competitive advantage. So let's get started by defining entrepreneur and comparing it to the term entrepreneur. This term, entrepreneur, was actually originated in the 1980s by a couple of management consultants, Gifford and Elizabeth Pinchot. They wrote a book entitled Intrapreneuring: Why You Don't Have to Leave a Corporation to Become an Entrepreneur. They said that entrepreneurs are individuals who take hands-on responsibility for creating innovations of any kind within a business. So while the entrepreneur starts a new separate business or some kind of venture outside of an existing organization, the entrepreneur is spearheading perhaps new products, new services, new programs, new projects, maybe even new policies that can improve an existing business. So the entrepreneur is operating, of course, in the organizational environment. They have the support of the organization with resources, whether that's tangible resources or perhaps the time to work on these things, and with the business that they're working for assuming most of the risk, while the entrepreneur is responsible for acquiring all of the needed resources for the new business that they want to start, and of course assuming 100% of the risk. What's great to know is that entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship really share a lot of the same benefits. You get to take on a leadership role, you get to make that meaningful impact, exercise creativity and innovation, and enhance your job satisfaction along the way, because you are exercising some freedom and autonomy to innovate. And that's just an exciting thing to be able to do. Being an entrepreneur, the added benefit there is it can build your credibility with your current employer because you're adding value to the company that you work for. You're enhancing that value by becoming an entrepreneur. And as I mentioned earlier, being an entrepreneur where you currently work can actually be at that training ground. It can help you learn how to be an entrepreneur. It can help you gain the additional skills, the experience that perhaps you can parlay into your own business down the road. And I can personally vouch for that. So I want to walk you through some of the things that I did at a previous employer that I put in that category of being an entrepreneur. When I was working at Illinois Central College, I was finishing up at one point my bachelor's degree in management, and as I was finishing up that degree, I transitioned into a management position as the coordinator of student activities department. One of the directives that my supervisor shared with me was to grow the number of student organizations and to also provide additional opportunities for student development. So the what was handed to me. I had the wonderful opportunity that the how, for the most part, was left up to me. And it was very exciting. I just finished this degree. I was really excited to apply what I'd learned and actually put some new things into place. So I did things like put some new marketing strategies in place to rebrand the department and to recruit students to either join existing organizations or start new ones along the way. And during my tenure, I actually doubled the number of student organizations that were there. Another thing that I started was a new student leadership development program where none had existed before. I also started a new service-based program where students who earned full scholarships could give back by completing volunteer hours, either on campus or out in the community. And along with that, I started a new transcript for students. It was a transcript that could accompany their academic transcript called an extracurricular transcript. So this tracked all of their extracurricular activities, including the volunteer hours that they did. So it was actually a formal, validated document that they could use to accompany their academic transcript when applying for jobs, when applying for new and other scholarship opportunities perhaps. A few years into my position there, I was also given some new responsibilities to oversee new student orientation. And this was a program that had been floundering perhaps over the previous years. Floundering, I mean, not a lot of students were participating, and they didn't really want to make it mandatory. So how could we make it the type of program that students wanted to participate in? At the same time that responsibility was given to me, the college was undertaking process management initiatives. So process management, if you're familiar with that business concept, it's a close cousin to Six Sigma. So it's all about process improvement, improving things. So I spearheaded and led a process improvement team to take a look at new student orientation and to see how we might revamp it. So we analyzed the existing approach, we set out to gather a lot of data and student input, and then we analyzed all of that, and we put a new format in place and new marketing strategies for enticing students or encouraging students to participate. And we evaluated, of course, our results afterwards. The great thing was we had about a 51% increase in participation. It was really fantastic. But I don't tell you these things to boast about myself. I tell you these things to show that being an entrepreneur, you're doing a lot of the same things you would be doing if you were running your own business. Some of the things that I just illustrated, there's a lot of power behind being an entrepreneur. So let's talk about my second point. How then can you become an entrepreneur and keep that day job? Well, let's take a look at what the common characteristics are that both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs share. They aren't afraid of risk. They are creative and innovative. They're problem solvers. They take initiative. They don't give up. And to that list, I would add that it's also important to be visionary and to have the ability to express that vision to other people so that they see the possibilities as well. They see how things could be improved, and they can embrace the new ideas and suggestions that you're bringing along. I would also add that a characteristic of an entrepreneur is self-discipline, because you are the one deciding how to go about what it is you're doing. You need some self-discipline to hold yourself accountable to those things. Set yourself some goals and objectives along the way. That ability to work independent of direct, constant oversight and supervision is really something that's very important, of course, as both an entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. So I say, take an honest assessment of yourself. Do you have those characteristics? If so, great. How can you parlay that into taking responsibility and showing that initiative and taking a little bit of risk, perhaps putting yourself out there to set your entrepreneurial spirit free within the company that you're already working for? If you don't believe you have all of the characteristics that I listed here, or you're not strong in all of those characteristics, but you still feel like you have that entrepreneurial spirit, then perhaps some personal coaching, finding a mentor, just advancing your personal and professional development in those areas that are challenges for you is important. That way you can build them and make them into strengths that will position you to be better able to be that entrepreneur. So take that honest assessment first. Douglas Brown with Post University, who I mentioned earlier, also shares some other tips. He said, to be an entrepreneur, you've got to deliver solutions. It's easy for us as employees to discover problems and want to take those to our boss, but you're really only doing part of your job if all you're doing is taking problems to your supervisor or to the company. Take well-reasoned, well-thought-out, realistic solutions along with helping identify those problems. Workable solutions. Think through the pros and cons ahead of time when you take those solutions. That can jumpstart the decision-making process. You can even recommend a first step to get the ball rolling. Brown also says you need to show your smarts. What that means is become a knowledge expert or a subject matter expert. Know more about a topic, excuse me, than the next person, even if it's just a little bit more. Share that knowledge then. Be that source of guidance, that source of creative thinking and information. Offer your ideas and suggestions and learn how to do that in a diplomatic way. Excuse me. For example, with an open-ended question. You might say something like this: what if we looked at this problem or this issue in this way, and then go right into the solution or the perspective that you have to suggest, that's a new way. Brown also says you need to be a hero to your boss. We all know that our supervisors have goals and objectives. The company has goals and objectives. Your job is to help the company and help your supervisor directly to achieve his or her goals. So it starts, first of all, by understanding what those goals and objectives are, by appreciating what your boss is being required to achieve, and then figure out how you can help him or her to achieve those goals more effectively and more efficiently. If you don't know the goals and objectives, ask. And then ask how you can help. Your focus, remember, is on creating new value for the business you're working for. Brown also says you need to demonstrate positive behaviors. Obviously, if you want to be seen as an entrepreneur, then exhibit the behaviors, also the skills, also the attitude that will lead to the achievements and set you up for being seen as the entrepreneur that you want to be or you desire to be. And lastly, he says, stop with the excuses. I know in a lot of companies it can be easy to say, well, forget it, my boss is a micromanager, or forget it, this company prefers to be stuck in its old ways. You know, this is the way we always do things around here. They don't want to listen to my ideas and suggestions. If you're in that mindset, then you're probably never going to take action and become an entrepreneur. So you need to be realistic that you might have some challenges and some obstacles that you face, but what that means for you is you may need to reframe how you present your ideas and suggestions so that if you have that current culture or that boss who isn't open to new ideas, you really learn how to be more diplomatic in how you bring those ideas and suggestions to the table. And that really brings me to my third point. The flip side of entrepreneurship is I want to talk to the business owners and managers out there now. How can you encourage entrepreneurship? Because it is a way to engage your employees more fully and more completely, to help them be more productive, to help you achieve your goals and objectives. By sparking innovation, it can even help you gain competitive advantage by building this culture of entrepreneurs. So how can you do that? How can you help employees set their entrepreneurial spirit free within your own business? First, it's important to understand a little brain science. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to share the brain science associated with freedom and autonomy, which starts with just a brief explanation of the limbic system without getting a little too technical here with us. I love David Rock. I love reading what David Rock writes about. If you read his book, Your Brain at Work, that's the best one that you can take a look at. It'll really help you take a deeper dive into many of the things I'm sharing with you today about the limbic system, but also much more. He's co-founder of the Neuro Leadership Institute, and he says this: the limbic system tracks your emotional relationship to thoughts, objects, people, and events. It determines how you feel about the world at any given moment. It drives behavior, often unconsciously, and one of its main functions is value judgments. So everything you do in life and everything you experience or encounter is being evaluated by your limbic system as either, well, it's being evaluated to determine, is it a threat or is it a reward? And this all happens pretty automatically and often unconsciously. The limbic system is making these toward or away decisions very quickly. So it's important to know this information when it comes to the concept of certainty. When we are in charge of something and directing our own experience, obviously we feel a little more certain about things. And certainty is something that our brains crave. The brain likes to be able to recognize patterns and to feel certain. When we have a strong sense of uncertainty about the future and we feel out of control, it causes a strong away response. So people are going to be disengaging and perhaps even be demotivated, of course. They're going to be unproductive for you, definitely not motivated to be entrepreneurs. And if these feelings of uncertainty and being out of control go on for too long, what you'll actually create are entrepreneurs, people who are going to be walking out the door, leaving your business to start their own because they're craving that certainty, that sense of control. So the idea here is how can you give them more of that and keep them in your business. The brain perceives that even by thinking about having more control. So the employee might be daydreaming about starting their own business, and just thinking about it gives them a feeling of more control and certainty and can continue to push them out the door. We feel a little safer when we feel certainty. So that would be one of the starting points for you as a business owner or manager is how can you create a safe space in which people can be entrepreneurs, in which they can flourish in a creative, open, innovative type of environment. There are a lot of great examples out there. We can look to the bigger corporations for some examples. Google is always used as an example. They're famously known for allowing their employees a certain percentage of time each week to work on projects of their own choosing, and it's a well-known fact that many of those projects have actually become innovations that Google has been able to capitalize on and profit from. But even right here in Peoria, we have CSE Software. They were featured recently in an Interbusiness Issues article that highlighted the workplace. And in that article, it talked about the fact that CSE provides on-the-clock time for employees to work on what they call passion projects. And I want to quickly point out, you don't have to be a technology-based business in order to benefit or need to create entrepreneurs or an environment in which people can set that entrepreneurial spirit free and be intrapreneurs. Any type of company needs innovation. Any type of company, of course, needs to build competitive advantage. And we all know one of the big ways we do that is to continue to innovate and develop new programs, new products, new services, and so forth. The other side of that is, how do you create a safe space? It literally could be a physical space to be able to do this type of thing. And oftentimes you see these open concept work environments. Be careful with that. Not everybody enjoys working in those open environments. You have those people who still need their quiet, focused thinking time to be able to function fully. So don't just imagine that magically putting an open environment in place, open workspace in place is going to instantly lead to entrepreneurship and creativity and innovation. It does take more than that. But on a smaller scale, there are a lot of things you can do. Here are some. You can give employees something of their own to focus on, projects they can own, some freedom to make choices about how to carry out those projects. The other thing that's key in making this safe is to minimize fear of failure. That's very helpful, because if you're creating fear, again, that's a threat response in the brain and employees will disengage. That sense of autonomy is really a big driver of reward or threat. People generally find it motivational if they have the freedom and autonomy to make their own choices. I think we can all agree with that. The less control employees perceive they have over their own direction or destiny, the higher the level of demotivation. So even giving people control over how they schedule their day, how they plan out their work, how they manage a specific project, how they schedule the workload that they have can be very important to creating that entrepreneurial spirit and that environment. Maui Gym, again, headquartered right here in Peoria, they're another great example. I love what one employee said about working there. She said, we're all expected to work hard and be dedicated, but we're not micromanaged. As long as our customers are well cared for, we can perform our duties as we see fit. Obviously, if you're a business owner or a manager out there, you might be thinking, well, that all sounds wonderful, but now you're creating a lot of uncertainty for me because I need some guarantee that my employees are actually going to do these things, and they can do them on their own. So providing that freedom and autonomy to your employees does require a leap of faith on your part. It does require you putting trust in your employees, but it also requires supporting them with resources, with information, those resources, whether it's time or tangible resources, and learning opportunities. If you feel that your employees aren't quite prepared to make that leap to entrepreneurship, be honest about that. Be realistic. Do they have a skills gap? Do they need to work on some of their abilities, some of those characteristics I mentioned earlier that will help prepare them? And if so, provide those learning opportunities for them to be confident, and they'll be confident in themselves, trust in their own abilities, and in turn that will allow you as the business owner and manager to build trust in what they're doing, and you won't feel that need to micromanage them. They'll help you fulfill that need you have for certainty, and the work will be accomplished according to those goals and objectives that you've set out for your business. So today we've talked about three things. We've talked about what it means to be an entrepreneur and how that compares to being an entrepreneur. We talked about how to become an entrepreneur by pursuing some projects within the business where you currently work. And lastly, I closed out with an explanation of how to have practical knowledge of this part of our brain we call the limbic system, and how it reacts to what's happening, how it reacts to fear, to uncertainty, but also how it reacts positively to freedom and autonomy, that you can create an environment as a business owner and manager to encourage that entrepreneurship. You'll have employees who are more engaged, employees who are able to spark those innovations, come up with those innovations you're seeking, and it will also help you gain that competitive advantage. Tomorrow, as you celebrate the 4th of July, however you celebrate that with your family and friends, I wish you a safe and happy time, but I also hope that you're also thinking about the things I shared with you today, how important freedom and autonomy was to our forefathers, and we can be grateful for that we live in this wonderful nation. But I also want you to think about how important freedom and autonomy is for yourself as an employee, becoming an entrepreneur, and how important it is as a business owner to foster that freedom and autonomy for your employees as well. I want to remind you that I still have guest spots open through the rest of July. You can email me at businessminds@email.com and let me know if you're interested. Remember, you can follow, like, and comment on Business Minds on Facebook. Have a wonderful and safe holiday, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
PeoriaLife.com